Good evening, residents, and welcome to this episode of Nightmare Nobodies. I am Timothy, and I'm joined by my friend Sam as we get together to discuss horror movies. Find a seat as we begin the gathering. Hello.
Hi,
Welcome to part 2.
where we talk about the ghosts from 13 Ghosts.
Ghost Talk.
We're talking about them and we're also rating them on who we thought was the scariest and which backstories we liked the best, I guess. I don't know. Did you read the backstories to them before?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, I know of their backstories. I watched that video you told me about.
Oh, yes,
Like
the
the
special
special-
feature.
Yeah. So I was getting my setup all ready this morning. I was listening to that and taking notes.
I love the visuals that they did with that, with the ghost files.
I could watch the visuals. It was just on in my pocket.
F. Murray Abraham narrated all of the stories. He played Cyrus in the movie. So it was just beautiful. I loved it all. I wish they could have figured out a way to put it, to incorporate some more of that into the movie. It would have just been so juicy.
Yeah, it's like we said in the first part. It's a good movie, but the ghosts that are supposed to be the focus aren't really the focus.
Right.
You know, because it's called 13 Ghosts, not a man and his 2 children.
So it's the machine is supposed to be the focus. The machine and getting Arthur to become the 13th ghost. That's the focus of the movie. But it's not very clearly stated.
No.
All right, so let's get into the ratings. We're going to start least scary all the way down to the one that was just the most bone-chilling for you.
Are we starting at 12 or 13?
13.
Okay.
Even though Arthur did not become a ghost, he is technically supposed to be the 13th ghost. He is supposed to be the broken heart ghost.
Ah, okay. I couldn't remember what he was technically called, and it was just called the living one.
So he is supposed to be the broken heart ghost. And that ghost is made from obviously a broken heart and a pure sacrifice, which is why he had to sacrifice himself. He had to be the willing participant. And that's why they kidnapped his kids, to try and force him into sacrificing his life. Obviously, Arthur would not be some evil, tortured ghost. Therefore, the broken heart ghost is my 13th ghost.
Yeah. If I saw Tony Shalhoub as a ghost, I'd probably just go up and hug him. I'm not even kidding. Like, oh, it's Tony Shalhoub, come here.
All right. So let's move on to number 12. Who do you have for number 12?
The Withered Lover.
Same.
Okay,
So
we need to disclaimer real quick. We kept our rating of these ghosts separate from each other, and I know we're only on number 2, and I'm pretty sure we're spot for spot so far. I don't know how many of these we're gonna have that are gonna be similar, but I'm gonna die laughing if there's more than 4.
yeah, I think there will be more than 4. Or right around 4, maybe 4 or 5 that will have the same.
Right.
We'll see.
Okay.
So
Let me read The Withered Lover.
Okay.
Let me give that backstory. Jean Criticos was a happy and devoted wife and mother. She died as a result of fire injuries at St. Luke's Hospital half a year before the events of the film began. Unlike most of the ghosts, she is not dangerous. She is benevolent.
Yes. All right. Let's move on
11.
to number 11. Who do you have?
The firstborn son?
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Okay.
What about you?
I have the torso.
Okay. Interesting.
So I have the torso because super easy. How's he going to kill you?
He's got one good arm and he was a boxer, Sam. He can dick punch you to death.
I'm fine with that considering I lack that genitalia. Okay.
Yeah.
So I'm safe there.
Break your knees.
Secondly, you can use his head as a soccer ball and then run away.
Yeah.
Fun fact that I saw while researching, the gentleman who played the torso was actually a double amputee.
Wow.
So when they were doing the CGI for the torso, because there is some CGI to be able to put the neck on him, all they had to do was put like a black cowl on him.
Okay.
So everything else for him is, obviously the head is not
right.
his head sitting next to him. But all they had to do as far as CGI goes was put a severed neck in there.
I thought he was also missing. I thought he only had one arm also. So did they like CGI out the other arm?
No, he had two arms.
Did he? Okay.
Yeah.
I couldn't remember. Still.
All right. So let me read.
Mine was the firstborn son just because I don't know. It's not that scary. If he poops his pants, I can just take off running, man.
Let me read the torso, and then you can read the origin of the firstborn. So the torso says, Jimmy the Gambler Gambino was a gambler in the early 1900s who caught the attention of the mafia. After he lost a boxing bet and didn't have the money to pay up, the mafia cut him into pieces and wrapped him in cellophane, dumping the remains in the ocean. His ghost appears as a torso with a severed head nearby and is more a neutral spirit than actively hostile. So in the Ghost Files, it wasn't just that he was a gambler. Jimmy was a bookie.
Oh, okay. He was a bookie. I couldn't. It was hard to decipher if he was the boxer or if he was a bookie. I couldn't. It's so much.
He was the boxer. He was the bookie. And he didn't have the money to pay up when the mafia boss won all the money. So then he made an example out of Jimmy and made him swim with the fishes.
The great child.
No, the firstborn son.
Oh, yeah, that's right. I'm sorry. I forgot what I wrote down. I was sitting here on the wrong thing. Firstborn son. Billy Michaels was a young boy who loved pretending to be a cowboy. One day, another little kid challenged Billy to a duel, but Billy's cap gun was no match for the boy's real steel-tipped arrow that Billy's ghost still carries in his head. Unlike most of the ghosts, this one is a mild threat, never attacking anyone and just saying, I want to play.
So, in the Ghost Files, they elaborate a little more. By the way, these summaries we found on Wikipedia.
Yeah, so these are Wikipedia nonsense sometimes.
Yes. So, Billy was a spoiled brat, basically. All he wanted to do was be a cowboy. That's it. Which is why it's weird to me that he wears the feather.
Yeah, I don't know why he's wearing the headdress at all, because it was the 60s, 50s, it was like, whatever.
Yeah.
White people going to do what they want with Indians, I guess.
So, he was basically a little spoiled brat. And his neighbor friend found a bow and arrow in his dad's closet, like a real one. And so they played. And apparently, Homeboy has a natural knack for being an archer. Like, we know what he's going to do when he grows up, because one shot got him in the head. Yes. Impressive.
So I've got a question. I grew up being outside. I know how to shoot a bow and arrow. I knew how to shoot a rifle and all that stuff. But when I was a kid, I couldn't get my my arrow to stick through hardly anything. The pullback on that. And these are like 7, 8-year-olds, right? What kind of Lou Ferrigno kind of kid is this? If he's going to sit there and like, boof.
Yeah, I don't know.
Lou Ferrigno.
But that's the story we've got here.
Mm-hmm,
so that's
indeed.
what we're going with.
This is not time for questions, Tim. Number 10.
Who do you have?
The Bound Woman.
Same.
3.
The Bound Woman is equally heartbreaking and disturbing, her origin story.
Mm-hmm.
So her origin story goes like this. It says, Susan LeGros was the richest girl in town and was very popular in school. Her one flaw was the way she flirted and toyed with boys and men, leaving a long trail of broken hearts. During her senior prom night, Chet Walters, a star quarterback, caught Susan cheating on him with another boy. The next day, the boy was found beaten to death, and Susan has gone missing. Susan was found dead 2 weeks later, buried beneath the 50-yard line of the high school's football field. Her ghost lures Bobby into the dangerous basement and still shows in her prom attire bound ropes holding her arms. The bound woman was terrifying to me. She had his tie around her neck.
Yeah.
And obviously she was bound, so her arms were behind her. Also, one of the things that got me is they weren't like this, right?
Mm-mm.
She was like, oh, like you didn't see her arms.
No.
Like you questioned whether or not she had arms.
Yeah. Yeah.
But this story, the thing that disturbed me the most about her story is Chet Walters. It is reported in this fictional story that Chet Walters on death row, the last thing he said was, the bitch broke my heart, so I broke her neck.
Brutal.
Yeah. So needless to say, if he was one of these 13 ghosts, he would be much higher on my list. Than she would be.
Yes. I mean, people who perpetuate domestic violence against partners will always get a high rating from me in terms of terror and fear. So, I agree. I did feel bad for the bound woman. Like, even though she was, according to the stories, rich and snooty and kind of played herself around town, it is still, it's not an excuse to sit there and like, yeah, she got killed for sleeping around. No, I don't want that. Right. You know, it's sad.
Yes. All right. Who's your number 9?
The torso.
Yeah. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
We've already read both of these actually, because my number 9 is The Firstborn.
Interesting. All right. What about number 8?
Number 8 is someone you don't see really interact with them at all. My number 8 is The Pilgrimess.
Oh, wow. All right. Mine's The Torn Prince.
Okay. So I'm going to read the story of The Pilgrimess. It says, Isabella Smith came to North America as a colonist in order to find a new life after being an orphan in England. The tight-knit community ostracized and ignored her and used her as a scapegoat, being accused of witchcraft when crops and animals mysteriously died. She denied such accusations, but she was trapped in a burning barn and managed to escape unharmed. That sealed her fate, and she died of starvation after being condemned to the pillory that she carries with her as a ghost, and her skin is badly damaged.
Yeah,
so to me, she's creepy.
Yeah, I couldn't really remember seeing her at all in the film, but it's definitely a little bit more spooky just because of her appearance.
So we see her when she's still in the containment cube.
Mm-hmm.
And then we see her up in the hallway outside of the library before the jackal appears again. But we do not see her much. She is not utilized much at all.
No.
However, she walked out of that barn completely fine by all records of the ghost files. So maybe she is a witch. And if that's the case, that's why she's not lower on my list. That's why she's kind of like right there in the middle. Because she could be dangerous. Because we don't know how magic is in the supernatural realm in this fictional world. Fictitious world. I know, I was about to say, so why don't you go ahead and read the origin story of the Torn Prince?
All right. Royce Clayton was a gifted and famous teenage baseball player in the 1950s who caught the eye of colleges around the USA. He died in a drag race, thanks to a challenger, a greaser who cut off his brake lines. His remains are still buried at the baseball diamond, and his ghost carries his baseball bat.
Yeah. I mean, death by bat does not seem fun to me. And that's why he is higher on my list. No.
Die by a bat. He died in a car crash.
For me.
Uh-huh.
He would beat you to death with the baseball bat.
Yeah.
So that seems...
Listen,
I don't want to die like that.
I'm going to say this in the only way I know how. I've ran from a couple of men with baseball bats before, so it's not really that scary anymore. You know, living in Los Angeles.
Life. All right, so let's move on to number 7.
Number 7, mine is the Pilgrimess.
Okay.
Because she's got the pillory, right? You know, and it's like,
yeah.
You see someone running at you with a pillar. Like, those things are heavy, firstly.
Right.
Her skin's all, like, messed up. You know, if you see someone walking at you like this. I'm
thinking, like, yes, but I'm also sitting here thinking, like, your hands are, you can't, what are you going to do, kick me to death?
Push you against the wall, trap you, let someone else kill you?
That happens a couple times.
What about you?
My ghost in the number 7 spot is the Dire Mother.
Okay.
Wow. Her origin story is sad, for sure.
Yeah.
So Margaret Shelburne, Harold's mother, was a shy little lady standing 3 feet tall. She never could stand up for herself. At the freak show where she lived, she was raped by the tall man, another circus freak, and gave birth to her illegitimate son Harold, whom she loved more than life itself. She smothered and spoiled him from infancy and never stopped as he grew. This is the main reason for Harold's mental handicap. The two were abused to the point where Harold killed almost the entire circus after Margaret died. As ghosts, they remain together, with Harold being protective. Like the torso, she's not aggressive and is more of a neutral spirit. So, what it doesn't tell you is the circus crew ganged up on Margaret and
she got
kind of brutally murdered her.
Yeah.
And that is what triggered Harold to Lizzie Borden them. Like he took an axe to them. Which is why we see him holding an axe in one hand and his mom's hand in the other. Now, but I understand she's a neutral spirit. The reason that I put her higher on my list is because she keeps Harold on a short leash. So if you piss her off, she will sick Harold on you. Which makes her more dangerous to me than, like, the Pilgrimess.
Yeah. And, I dig. I just had to switch places real quick for my listings. So,
Okay.
Number 6.
For me, number 6 is The Torn Prince.
Okay. Mine is The Dire Mother. Right?
Okay.
Uh-huh.
So we've read both of them. Mm-hmm. Why did you put The Dire Mother at number 6?
Because a mother's going to protect her child at any costs. And she, because she's a ghost, I believe that she wouldn't have any inhibitions to kill someone if her child was threatened.
I still say she's going to sick her child on you.
I mean, or
she's
that.
3 feet tall.
But I know. But I mean, it's still connected to her.
Yes.
So she's still going to be a threat in my mind because she comes as a package with the great child. And that's the only reason why, honestly.
What about number 5?
The Angry Princess.
All right.
What about you?
Would you like to read Dana's story?
Yes. You didn't tell me what yours was, damn it. You're supposed to tell me.
I will.
Oh my God.
Read it first. I'll tell you after.
Dana Newman was a beautiful but abused lady who lived in the late 20th century. She had plastic surgeries to alter her perceived flaws, and after a botched experiment that mutilated her eye, she brutally killed herself in the bathtub at the clinic. Her ghost is bloody, naked, and carries the same knife she used to commit suicide.
I don't like this synopsis of her story because Dana Newman was beautiful. She did have a string of abusive boyfriends, but she didn't just have plastic surgeries. She got a job in a plastic surgeon's office and was paid in operations and procedures. Then late one night, she got a hair up her butt. That's the only way I can describe it. To perform a procedure on herself for an imperceivable flaw. It went horribly wrong. She blinded herself. And in a fit of depression and rage, mutilated her body to a point where she was almost unrecognizable.
Yeah.
And that's how she took her life. Yes, it was in a bathtub.
But weren't her wrists also cut?
Yes, everything was cut.
I just want to double check.
That's why she has
Big,
knife
long
marks
gashes
all over herself. And it said when she was found that someone said that even in this mutilated state, she was still beautiful.
Jeez. That's twisted.
My number 5 is The Great Child.
Interesting.
And I shall read his story. Harold Shelburne was a mentally disabled man who never outgrew diapers and had to be spoon-fed even as a fully grown adult. He often made baby sounds. After being mocked, teased, and tormented relentlessly at all his life, he caused a massacre at the old freak show where he and his mother, Margaret Shelburne, lived. Some of the freaks had kidnapped and killed his mother as a joke one night. The circus owner, Jimbo, had Harold mutilated beyond recognition. His ghost appears as Harold did in life, with a small patch of hair, a bib covered in vomit, and cloth diapers. He still holds the axe that he used to kill his enemies.
He's a big man.
Yes. His dad was the tall man. And I believe in the Ghost Files it said something like his dad stood over 7 feet tall.
Yeah.
Could you imagine a woman as small as Margaret having to birth a child? Yeah, exactly.
Oh.
Having birthed 2 children? No.
No.
So I put the Great Child at 5 because he's just terrifying to me. Not the scariest, but in a very kind of Norman Bates way, he's terrifying.
I can see that. Wow.
So there you go. That's my number 5. What's your number 4?
The Great Child.
Now you want to know what's funny?
What? Ours are swapped, huh?
Yeah. My number 4 is the Angry Princess.
That's hilarious.
Because you can see in the bathtub scene, she's got a hair trigger. Like it flips like that. Like she's very impulsive. So, and I don't really think that there's any mobility issues there, so outrunning her would be hard. So I'm like, she's kind of scary. She's got like that twinkle in her eye. And you're like, is she that unhinged? Kind of like... Yeah.
She's got the Kill Bill music playing in her head as she looks at you.
Yes! She's got that dead look behind her eyes. It's like Michael Myers. Now, this is where we know who we have left.
Yep. But
okay.
The exciting part is trying to figure out how closely we've gotten it so far.
Right. We're at
because
3.
We have the same 3 left over, I'm sure.
Yes, we do. So, who's your number 3?
The Jackal.
Oh. No. My number 3 is the Hammer.
Okay. Interesting.
So go ahead and read the Hammer. We're going to save the Jackal for when he pops up for mine.
Yes. The Hammer. A happy and honest family man and blacksmith in the early 1890s, George Marcailly was falsely accused of stealing by a higher-up named Nathan and threatened with exile from the old western town. Knowing he was innocent, George stood up to Nathan and refused to leave. One day, when George's family was walking home from the market, Nathan and his gang of thugs attacked and killed them brutally. Enraged, George took his blacksmith's hammer, tracked down Nathan and his friends, and beat them to death, but the townsfolk chained him to a tree outside his blacksmith shop and drove railroad spikes into his body. His left hand was cut off, and his hammer was crudely attached to it. His ghost is one of the more angry spirits and is partially responsible for Dennis's death. Didn't they drive the railroad spikes into him with his own hammer?
So the lore is that they used his hammer and the railroad spikes from his blacksmithing shop. And yes, they used the hammer to drive them into him. The very last thing they did before they left him for dead was chop off his most prized possession, which was his hand, and attached his hammer to his wrist.
Yeah.
One of the probably most grotesque things about the hammer is this, and yet it is not prominently featured in the movie, and I feel that is a very missed opportunity.
Agreed.
Also, anyone, dead or alive, that will just pull railroad spikes out of their body while staring at you and not even flinch is a level of disturbed for me that I am not comfortable with. Sorry.
It's all right.
But he is also one of the stories. His is one of the stories that breaks my heart.
Yeah, it's real sad. It's real sad, and he really was treated badly by these people, and it's definitely upsetting.
Yes. All right. Who do you have for 2?
The Hammer.
You know what's funny?
You have the Jackal?
No.
Oh.
Our last 3 are not the same.
No.
At all.
I wouldn't expect it to.
So
You and I have very different fears.
2 and like my 2 and 1 are actually tied.
I mean,
So I
so
made
are mine.
I made the executive decision to go based on teenage Sam. When
Okay.
these ghosts legitimately scared me.
Mm-hmm.
That's what won out. Like overall.
Mm-hmm.
That's why, because I did not make this list until this morning, right before we started recording, because procrastination is my best friend. That's why it was so difficult for me to make this list, because I had to go back and forth. Like, do I want to do it this way? Do I want to do it this way? But, all that stuff.
It makes sense.
So my number 2 is the Juggernaut.
My number 1 and my number 2 were tied. My number 1's Juggernaut.
My number 1's the Jackal. So why don't you go ahead and read the Juggernaut?
Okay.
And I will read the Jackal after.
Yeah. Horace Breaker Mahoney was born very disfigured and was an outcast his entire life. His mother abandoned him at a tender age, and his dad put him to work in the junkyard, using his unusual strength to crush cars. After his dad died, Horace went insane. He would take motorists and hitchhikers, tear them apart with his bare hands, and feed the remains to his dogs. After several of these murders, he was arrested. A SWAT team shot and killed him when he broke free of his handcuffs. As a ghost, he remained at the junkyard with his body riddled with bullet holes, killing intruders. Both Dennis and Cyrus remarked that his kill count numbered in the 40s, making his ghost one of the most evil and dangerous of the 12.
So, a couple of things. That several murders during his lifetime, that actual number is 9. He got caught because he picked up an undercover
Police.
cop, like a female undercover cop. Of that SWAT team, he killed 3 of them. And then they put 50 bullets into him. That's what it took to take him down. And then afterwards, for good measure, because he scared the snot out of them so much, one of the officers unloaded another clip in him.
Just to make sure.
Yes.
Double tap.
Gotta do what you gotta do, I guess. I don't know.
All right, girlie, tell us about the Jackal.
But hang on, really quick.
No.
There's another thing about the Juggernaut / the Breaker that I think should be mentioned.
Yes.
He got the nickname the Breaker because he would literally break every bone in his victims' bodies for fun.
Yeah.
Because why not?
And
Because if he can
he's that
smash
strong.
cars, he can break bones.
Yeah, that's I've I've been in a couple of fist fights, and I've cracked a couple of ribs. Having a fist hit you in the ribs and having that crack, it's bad. I couldn't imagine what it would be like to have every bone in your body. I would hope to God that I'll be dead at that point. I don't want to exist through that garbage.
And then my question is he very methodical about the way that he breaks you, or is it just like in a fit of rage? Right? Like, does he go for your spine first? So, hey, you're dead.
Well, or you're paralyzed and you can still watch.
Yeah. All right. And now for the final one. Who is the most terrifying for me? And it's the visual for me as a 16-year-old, seeing that man who I thought for a long time was a woman.
Yeah, same. I was so, just to interrupt you, when you were telling me about the Jackal and how afraid you were of him, I was sitting there, I was like, I thought this was a woman. Because I thought I heard the actors, like the characters in the movie say, get her off of, get the ghost off of her, get her off of her. Katie, or whatever the kid's name was, right?
Kathy.
I knew it started with K. But you know what I mean?
Yeah. I don't remember. I think here's the thing. At that point, I was so traumatized. I wasn't listening to pronouns. Okay?
We don't need pronouns, we're afraid.
Pronouns didn't matter to me. Just get it off of her. So, the story of the Jackal goes like this. Born to a prostitute in 1887, Ryan Kuhn developed a sick appetite for women, attacking and raping strays and prostitutes in the night. Seeking to be cured of his insatiable appetite, Ryan voluntarily committed himself to Borehamwood Asylum for treatment. But after years of solitary confinement, Ryan went completely insane, scratching on the walls so violently his fingertips were torn completely off. In response, the doctors kept him permanently bound in a straitjacket, tying it tighter whenever he acted out, contorting his limbs. After gnawing through his straitjacket to get free, the doctors locked his head in a cage and sealed him away in a cell in the basement. While there, he developed a hatred of humanity, screaming madly and cowering whenever approached by people. When the asylum burst into flames, he chose to stay behind and perish in the fire while everyone else escaped. His ghost carries his torn straitjacket with the torn cubic head cage. It is called a sign of Hell's Winter. He is one of the more aggressive and violent ghosts, attacking and nearly killing Kathy before Kalina saves her. Unhinged is an understatement with this ghost.
Brother chewed through a cage.
Unpredictability is not something I do well with. I am a planner. So even at 16 years old, chaos was not something I thrive in chaos, or I can. I don't like chaos.
Right.
So
Entropy.
He was frightening for so many different reasons. But he also gives me one of my favorite little goofy moments. And I used to do it as a teen to my friends who also loved it. At the very end of the movie, you see all of the ghosts walking into like the forest. And he goes and does this like weird and like cackles, right? Because his movements are very animalistic. So while he terrifies me, he also gives me one of my favorite parts of the movie. I'm a complicated woman.
It's watching the bars after Halloween night closes.
Yes.
Watching everyone filter out of the bar.
So I'm kind of surprised at how different our lists are.
Yeah.
But you know, we got 3. We got
Right?
3 out of 13
That's not
that
bad.
are the same. No, it's not bad. I was kind of expecting it to be a little more, but hey, beggars can't be choosers. It's not my fault that you suck at rating ghosts.
Listen, I was just going to say, it's not my fault that I have not, seen this 1,000 times like you and know these ghosts on a personal name basis.
I do.
You do?
I do.
And it really ticked me off because I was like, I don't know what these names are.
Oh no, like I kind of really do. Like I knew that the Torn Prince his name is Royce, and I knew the Jackal's name was Ryan, and
Sam, you know these ghosts are your friends, Sam.
They are.
So, I mean, for like having to make this kind of decision after a first watch is always difficult for me because
But I feel like it's also a really accurate representation of how you're feeling about the movie. So like,
yeah. I mean, and so the Juggernaut being number 1 on my list, it's there because the opening of the movie,
I was going to say,
it got me. I told you, I was holding my leg, like my knees up to my chest. I was like under a blanket, like, oh my God, I didn't want to be eaten by this guy.
No,
I know he doesn't eat people, but you know what I mean.
It makes sense. It really does.
And then the hammer, like, sorry, just taking the nails out. It's like,
So if we're going just purely visual, my top 3 are still the Jackal. Jackal is still number 1. The hammer, and then the Juggernaut.
Maintain. Well, maybe I'll move the hammer and Jackal.
Because visually, like...
Yeah. Because that cage, you can see, it's...
Yes.
It's bent out and when I'd watched it, I didn't realize that the jackal had actually eaten through the bars because they don't talk about it. It's just,
No.
homie's just running at you, doing his thing. And it's just like, I am too afraid to ask right now.
Right. And it's really hard when most of the screen time that the jackal has is when he is chasing them.
Yeah.
So
running.
It's going back and forth, right? Between the two. I do like, and I do think it is such a beautiful shot when the first time she puts those glasses on, he is the first thing you see.
That's nuts. Yeah, yeah.
And it's such a beautiful shot of him.
Mm.
Like, you could freeze frame there and, like,
right?
take in the costume and the outfits and all of that. But, like, that's the only time that you really get a clear shot of him.
Mm. Yeah, it's... And I feel like the Hammer got more screen time. I mean, more of his, like, grotesque screen time.
Yes, for sure.
So it's really just difficult to...
And I mean, then you have, like, the Bound Woman, who got very little screen time. The Pilgrimess, who got almost no screen time.
Yeah,
So, like, and then the Angry Princess.
Yeah.
Like, all the screen time.
Yeah, they just wanted the
Full frontal?
Can I say breasticles?
Yes.
She like this. So this is another one of those movies that was on a lot when I was visiting my family, and so I've seen like bits and pieces of this movie throughout my life, but I never realized that the angry princess like had her like whole breasticles just hanging out there and like jiggling and stuff, and I was like, this is really kind of scaring me.
Yes.
And I think she got a lot of the screen time because of those.
Yes. It's
a horror movie.
She was in one of the most, like, one of my favorite scenes. Just visually. But she was one of my least favorite ghosts. Yeah.
I mean, because she's not really that interesting.
Her story is tragic. However,
sad.
Her death is just, I don't know, it just translates into nakedness.
Yeah.
So
this is why you need to think about your ghost outfit, kids.
Exactly. You dress every day how you want to be when you die. You know what I mean? Like, every time you put your clothes on, you think, if I died, would I want to live in this? That's why I live in lounge clothes.
Indeed. Sweatpants are the best things ever made.
So comfortable.
So, Sam, should we wrap it up here?
I think we should.
We have talked at length about these ghosts. I keep wanting to call them zombies. I'm so sorry. It's because they have got physical... They're physical sometimes. They can touch you, and the Juggernaut's kind of got this blue skin that's giving zombie.
Yeah. And
so,
the Jackal does as well.
Yes. Yeah. So we've talked at length about these ghosts, and I think I'll be ready, more prepared for my next watching of 13 Ghosts, if that ever happens.
I don't like that. I'm going to make you watch it now. Next time we're together, we're watching it.
Okay. That's fine. I mean, I'll watch it with people I like, but I won't bloody watch it on my own. How's that?
Okay.
Any final thoughts?
Thank you for listening to us ramble on about 12 and a half ghosts, because Arthur was not one.
Close, but not.
Close, but no cigar.
So,
and join us next week for whatever random movie we decide to watch.
Indeed. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Thank you for joining us this evening. Please, go out and be spooky. will be here waiting.
Well, I didn't see that coming.